Cleaning up politics, Taiwan plans to ban people convicted of organized crime from holding public office. Taiwan floats the idea of reopening links between China and its offshore islands, but renewed COVID fears already causing headwinds. After TSMC announces its second factory in America, we take a look at how countries are trying to bring chip production home. In the art of tea, we meet the two sisters who've taken on the family business and are now winning international acclaim. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Ethan Liu. Taiwan's cabinet will put forward a bill that would ban people convicted of certain crimes from running for public office. It is part of a government push to stop organized gangs from influencing local politics. The plan, however, has reignited debate around several councillors suspected of having criminal ties. Stush Butler reports.
This is Xu Xiurui, a city council chief for the opposition Kuomintang. Before he came to office, Xu was known as the boss of a criminal triad and convicted of coercion and kidnapping. He's not the only politician with a criminal background, and a new proposal from Taiwan's cabinet is thrusting their past back into the spotlight. The cabinet's draft bill would ban anyone involved in gang-related crimes from running for office. That includes involvement in organized crime, money laundering, drug-related offences, and illegal possession of guns and knives. A Green Party councillor from the same city as Xu says it's time to clean up local politics.
那在这样子的情况，国民党还是选择了跟具有黑道背景的候选人合作。那这就代表说，他并不是像朱主席所说的那么的清白。
But the problem of gang involvement in politics goes deeper than just the Kuomintang. In the 80s and 90s, after Taiwan became a democracy, gangs used local politicians from various parties to promote their interests. Cleaning up government since then has been a long and drawn-out process. And Kuomintang chair Eric Zhu says the ruling party should look in its own backyard before throwing accusations at the opposition.
民进党想要用这样子的一个等于乌贼战啊，来抹黑国民党。民进党自己去看一看，他有没有跟国民党一样严格的排黑条款。
Before the recent election, out of 885 local councillors, 136 had criminal records. That's about 15% of the total. Almost half of them were from the opposition Kuomintang, another 35 were independents, and 26 belonged to the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. Other parties made up the rest. Not all of them will be banned from office under the cabinet's proposal, but high-profile examples like Xu Xiurui show the government's plan would still have a significant effect on who gets to run Taiwan's local governments. Alex Chen and Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
Around 300 Taiwanese nationals may still be trapped in Cambodia or other Southeast Asian countries after falling victim to scammers, according to a Taiwanese diplomat. As of December 12th, Taiwan's government had assisted with the return of over 400 Taiwanese people. Many of them claimed they were lured to Cambodia by lucrative but fake job offers. They were then trapped and forced to work for fraud rings. Taiwanese officials are warning people to stay vigilant as countries further ease COVID restrictions and travel becomes easier.
不要落入高薪利诱的工作陷阱哦。尤其现在农历年快要到了哈，不要被朋友一揪呢，就去那些国家，也不先了解清楚去的目的是什么。因为我们发现以往有一些案例呢，都是被自己身边的亲友所出卖的，所以我想出国求职或者出国旅游，还是务必要小心谨慎。
A Taiwanese pastry known as the pineapple cake could soon become the latest Taiwanese product barred from the Chinese market. Jiade, a well-known Taipei shop that exports the cakes, says it won't comply with Chinese requests for more information about its factory and recipes. The requests are part of a new registration procedure China now requires companies to go through to gain access to its market. The firm says its focus will stay on Taiwanese consumers. Close to 2,000 Taiwanese companies have been shut out of the China market this year alone after Beijing either rejected or failed to process registration paperwork. Recently blocked products include seafood, liquor, and beer. Debate has been swirling this week here in Taiwan about reopening the so-called mini three links between China and the offshore islands of Matsu and Kinmen. Ryan Ho Kilpatrick has more details.
Nearly 3 years since most ties of China were severed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The ferries that once shuttled between the Chinese city of Xiamen and Taiwan's offshore Kinmen Islands bob idly at their moorings, the sea breeze brushing past shuttered shop fronts and hushed streets.
这几年通通没有大陆客来，那就是表示说我这几年的相关的产业链，包含旅馆这些相关的产业，通通是零。通通是零的话呢，就表示我损失，我们金门的损失大概有60几亿了。
Calls to reopen the so-called free mini-links are growing. These are the routes connecting Kinmen to Quanzhou and Xiamen, which lies just half an hour away by ferry, as well as the Matsu Islands to the north and the nearby Chinese city of Fuzhou. The free links refers to the three types of connections: postal, transportation, and trade. They're mini since they link up Taiwan's offshore counties rather than the main island. They started in 2001 as China's economy opened to the world and Taiwanese investment. Opposition Kuomintang lawmaker Chen Yuzhen, who represents Kinmen in Taiwan's legislature, traveled to Xiamen earlier this week to discuss reopening with Chinese authorities. Deputy Health Minister Victor Wang is in Kinmen to inspect disease prevention measures ahead of reopening the links. A new obstacle is China's abrupt reversal of COVID policy, which is expected to result in a wave of new infections this winter.
已经解除了这个封控，那所以预期是有这个一波很大的这个流行会起来。那离岛的这个医疗资源相对是比较小的。
Due to these vulnerabilities, Taiwan's health authority says it will monitor the situation in China ahead of any reopening. Back in Taipei, Premier Su Zhantang has defended remarks saying Chinese visitors might snatch up COVID medicine at the expense of Taiwanese. The opposition has called the suggestion inhumane.
2020年疫情刚起，台湾口罩缺乏的时候，我们禁止口罩出口，也被同样的那几张嘴骂说没人道。中国疫情不公开不透明，我们也要警觉在先。
While much of the world has already resumed travel as usual, the future of cross-strait exchanges remains uncertain. The reopening of the free mini-links could become a test of a frayed relationship. But before then, it will be a test of confidence in China's belated reopening strategy. Ryan Hill-Kilpatrick for TaiwanPlus.
Trouble at one of the world's largest bicycle manufacturers, Giant, has triggered a slump on Taiwan's stock market. Giant's share price tumbled by almost 10% on Tuesday to the lowest in almost a year, following reports that the company had asked its suppliers for payment postponements. Giant is facing supply issues as local and global demand for bicycles decreases post-pandemic. The overall benchmark index for the Taiwan Stock Exchange lost 0.61%, although it had recouped those losses by close on Wednesday. Beijing has filed a lawsuit against the United States for tightening controls over the export of advanced chip-making machinery to China. The export curbs aim to stop China's chip industry in its tracks and push for more high-tech production to come back to the U.S. But as James Chater reports, this goal is not Washington's alone.
Taiwanese semiconductor giant TSMC is building a second factory in the U.S. state of Arizona.
We'll construct a second fab here in Phoenix to build chips, 3 nano chips, the 3 nano chips.
And despite struggling with the jargon, US President Joe Biden says the $40 billion investment in chips, the brains of most modern devices, is a big win.
These investments are helping us build and strengthen the supply chain here in America.
TSMC's move came after Washington passed a new law, the CHIPS Act, in July, which earmarks $52 billion for boosting domestic production of microchips. It comes as the already tense tech rivalry between the US and China heats up.
This is a bad day for President Xi and the Chinese Communist Party, and the potential they would have of cutting off our access to advanced semiconductors.
For governments around the world, pandemic-era shortages of the most advanced chips, 90% of which are made by TSMC, was a wake-up call.
所以各国就发现到，有的半导体对产业不断链是这么的重要。
Governments now say a stable chip supply is an issue of national security, and that's left them scrambling to fund domestic chip making and reduce their reliance on Taiwan, even if it's costly. Apart from setting aside some $52 billion for chip development, the CHIPS Act also provides a 25% tax credit for investment in manufacturing equipment. Japan has approved 774 billion yen for domestic chip investment, with grants of up to 50% of capital expenditure. And South Korea, home to TSMC's main rival Samsung, has promised $450 billion in chip investment over the next decade, with tax breaks of up to 40% for chip development. But in Taiwan, there are fears this trend will create cracks in the country's silicon shield. That's the idea that the country's world-leading chip industry would deter Beijing from attacking Taiwan, which China claims as part of its territory. In response, Taiwan passed legislation in November that's been called its own version of the CHIPS Act. It will provide companies in research and development tax credits of up to 25% for investment in innovation and 5% for investment in advanced chip-making equipment. Critics say the act will only help giant firms like TSMC, but there are those who feel Taiwan's position at the top of the chip supply chain is secure.
It's going to be very hard for U.S. to build a fab business overnight. So the worry that TSMC would be stolen overnight would be a little bit far-fetched.
The production of advanced chips at home is a costly business, but for many governments, it's worth the price in exchange for national security. Ricky and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
President Tsai Ing-wen has met with members of the top U.S. political think tank. The delegation from the Center for Strategic and International Studies is the first to visit Taiwan since the COVID pandemic began. The group is here to learn about the challenges facing the country and to discuss how to respond to them through bilateral cooperation. At their meeting, Tsai says she hopes U.S.-Taiwan trade ties can be strengthened under a new initiative launched in June. The second meeting under that framework may be held in Taiwan before January's Lunar New Year holiday. A court in Taiwan's northern city of Taoyuan has sentenced a man to death for a fatal 2021 stabbing. The man stabbed a convenience store clerk who told him to wear a mask in line with Taiwan's COVID mask mandate. The ruling can be appealed. Taiwan has now 38 prisoners on death row. It last executed a prisoner in 2020. Tea farming is hard work, and that's why many young people are reluctant to join the industry. But that hasn't stopped two sisters from taking over the family business. Our reporter Yu Jin Huang finds out how they're not just winning awards with their product, they're also breaking gender stereotypes.
Picking tea leaves, 66-year-old Zheng Yiguang has been doing this since he was a child. Now, he's the third-generation owner of his family's tea farm. Independent tea farms like this one, everyone pitches in to do the work. Zheng never expected his two daughters would want to take over the business. So he was ready for the century-old farm to end with him.
男生的话呢，是说体力上来讲，可能男生比较吃些，比较负荷。
But his two daughters don't agree. In fact, they both walked away from successful careers to take over the family business in 2015. The older daughter, Zheng Yufang, took the lead. She's been interested in tea production ever since she was in junior high school, and would even volunteer to stay up late and help with farm chores. Yufang eventually went on to become a PE teacher, but she never lost her passion for tea production. After nearly 8 years away, she decided to return to farm work. And she actually did both jobs for a month until the school could find a replacement.
一整天弄到凌晨4点，炒完茶，工作到7点，然后接着就去上班。那上班到，因为那时候应该也年轻啊，所以觉得好像没有很累。
The entire tea making process takes at least 30 hours, and each step has to be done by hand. Hence, their tea leaves taste much better than those stirred by machines. It might look easy, but your hands get sore after doing it nonstop. And it's not enough to just make the tea leaves. You have to sell it too. That's particularly difficult for independent farmers. Fortunately, Yufang knew the perfect person for the job, her younger sister, Zheng Limi. She was doing human resources for a company in Australia, but Yufang persuaded her to come back home.
然后用亲情公司跟我说，哦，我奶奶老了，爸爸年纪大了，然后呢，他想要接下来做。
The two sisters started a revolution at the farm. They overhauled the entire operation, from how the tea trees are grown to switching from wholesale to retail. Their father had doubts at first. The biggest sticking point was this tiny insect. In order to produce top-quality Oriental beauty tea leaves, you have to get the green leaf hopper to buy the leaves. That means you can't use pesticide on the tea plants. Yufang proposed a solution that went counter to her father's experience, but to his surprise, it worked.
现在就流行无毒啊，然后没有不撒农药，没有不用除草剂那些啊，就照他们的仪式去做啊。现在我是他们的小帮手。
When he was still running the farm, Zheng Yigang won multiple awards for his tea. Now that his daughters have taken over, they've not only won local awards, they've surpassed their father, winning international recognition too. Their Oriental Beauty Tea received the Superior Taste Award from the International Taste Institute. Those awards are judged by Michelin-starred chefs. The honor propelled the Zheng family's tea onto the international stage.
采茶姑娘手上采的茶，从九湖这个地方啊送到美国去，送到哪里去，他们就会觉得很骄傲。然后慢慢的，他们就会觉得说，哎，好像蛮有一套啊。
The Zheng sisters' efforts have won recognition, not just from their father, but from around the world. And their success shows that old industries can learn new tricks. Leon Lian, Irene Wu, and Eugene Huang for TaiwanPlus.
Since Taiwan's Southern Cross Island Highway reopened in May, an average of 2,000 vehicles have crossed the road each day. The surrounding area has also become very popular with hikers, but this has created a new environmental challenge. Jeremy Olivier has more.
This video of a Formosan yellow-throated marten searching for something to eat is raising alarms. That's because the cute mountain-dwelling mammal is not consuming its usual diet of wild plants and small animals, but trash thrown out by motorists on Taiwan's newly reopened Southern Cross Island Highway.
乱丢垃圾都会造成一个环境的污染，另外也会造成生态的浩劫。我们就有发现有一些小动物，像是黄喉貂，它们就咬着它们的口罩，或者是一些用路人，他们随便丢弃的便当纸盒。
It's not just the area right next to the highway that's been marred by litter. People hiking to a nearby waterfall on Sunday discovered the secluded spot was no longer unspoiled, but instead turned into a valley of trash.
该处位于饮用水水源水质保护区内，任意弃置垃圾污染水源水质，已违反饮用水管理条例，本局从一重裁处10万元至100万元以下罚锾。
After waiting 13 years for the scenic highway to reopen, large numbers of visitors have come to experience its beauty. But sightseers will need to be a bit more conscious about how they dispose of their garbage. Damon Lin and Jeremy Olivier for TaiwanPlus.
India says the troops were involved in a scuffle with Chinese soldiers along the two countries' disputed border. Indian protesters burned Chinese flags and products on Tuesday in response to the announcement. India's army says Friday's skirmish resulted in minor injuries on both sides. China's foreign ministry has only said that the border situation is, quote, generally stable. The two sides have been trying to de-escalate tensions since the border clash in 2020 killed at least 24 troops. Scientists in the United States have announced a breakthrough in nuclear fusion technology, and Sally Jensen reports it could be one of the first steps toward providing large-scale clean energy.
Imagine if you could harness the sun's energy to provide clean, safe power for the whole planet. For decades now, that's what nuclear fusion scientists have been trying to achieve. Many believe that fusion has the potential to revolutionize the way we power our societies.
In a world that we have people fighting over energy resources and we're worried about climate change, fusion brings us this grand challenge that can be life-changing.
But despite the billions of dollars and huge amounts of energy poured in, nuclear fusion has so far only managed to produce enough energy to boil a few kettles. But a new breakthrough could be about to change that.
We've been working on fusion for 60 years now or more, and this is the first time that in a controlled laboratory setting, you've created more fusion energy out than it took to heat the fuel up to temperatures required to make fusion happen.
This net energy gain is the breakthrough that scientists in the United States' Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory announced yesterday.
This milestone moves us one significant step closer to the possibility of zero carbon, abundant fusion energy powering our society.
Nuclear fusion, which promises to be a cleaner, more abundant source of energy than fossil fuels or the fission technology used in existing nuclear power, has already attracted great interest from investors and dozens of companies around the world.
So I think that what we need is if we want to prevent further climate change, that we are going to need a diverse options of energy production to deploy. And nuclear energy, both fission and fusion, really must be a part of that equation, that we're not going to get there with renewables alone.
These latest findings do not mean that we can begin using nuclear fusion as an energy source just yet. In fact, some experts are hesitant about imagining a fusion-powered world.
The stakes are rising all the time in terms of really having the need to try to find as many alternative approaches which do not emit as much carbon as fossil fuels. And fusion isn't the sole solution to that. It's part of the energy mix. We need to be trying everything we can possibly think of.
Will nuclear fusion finally fulfill its promise of limitless clean energy for everyone? We may have to wait a few more decades to find out. Patrick Chen and Sally Jensen for TaiwanPlus.
A recycling plant in central Taiwan's Changhua County is turning toxic waste from the steel industry into new and useful materials. Charlie Storer has more.
If you come in here, keep your face mask on. The dust piled up in this warehouse is highly toxic. A waste product from steel furnaces that contains poisonous heavy metals and dioxins. Those are so-called forever chemicals that take decades to break down and cause severe health issues if they get into the food chain. And yet, until relatively recently, Taiwan's steel industry would simply dump tens of thousands of tons of this electric arc furnace dust every year, with little care for the environment or human health. Waste buried by the sea in northern Taiwan's Hsinchu County has made the area the country's most toxic strip of coastline. The practice is not only unsustainable, but also a waste of good rubbish, because the metals in the dust, like zinc and lead, are valuable if you take the trouble to extract them. And that's why members of the Taiwan Steel Union came together to invest in a facility that could take the dust from their electric arc furnaces and recycle it into useful products. At the Steel Union's recycling plant in central Taiwan's Changhua County, the toxic dust is placed into this rotary kiln, where it is heated until the dioxins burn away.
从30度慢慢的提升到1300度的过程中，就会把里面的有害物质给破坏。
What comes out the other side is zinc oxide, which has dozens of applications, ranging from rubber and ceramics to food and drugs. Since the plant was set up, close to 17,000 tons of furnace dust has been processed from steel plants in Hsinchu and Changhua. And the Taiwan Steel Union says dumping is a thing of the past.
在台湾集成灰
炼钢厂随处请到，绝对是已经是不可能的事情了。
And that's not all. After the valuable metals have been extracted from the dust, what you have left is a harmless rock-like slag. This can be used as a layer in roads and floors in place of natural gravel. This application for the last remaining leftover means Taiwan's steelmakers, with a little effort, can upcycle 100% of an environmental poison into useful and profitable materials. Leon Lien and Charlie Storer for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching today's TaiwanPlus News. Remember to download the TaiwanPlus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, today we leave you with the holiday spirit in Taiwan's capital city, Taipei, where there are lights in the Christmas tree to celebrate the coming holiday. I'm Ethan Liu. Take care, and I'll see you next time.
The cutest show is coming. Pop Nation, coming Monday, December 19th on TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus. For more great news from Taiwan and around the world, visit TaiwanPlus.com and download the app.